This is Taboo Talks. Welcome back to, I think this is episode number 12 now. And I have a very good friend of mine from my previous military affiliation. And today we're going to talk about basically just like sexual orientation and how that can impact your work life, especially being in the military. So we'll go into a little bit more detail about that. But it's basically just going to touch on not necessarily the relationship part of like February, this month of love that we're celebrating, but a lot of the friendships that went on there and kind of how that impacted him and his story. So, friend, let's see. What do we want to start off with? Okay, so everybody meet Louie. Louie meet everybody. Basically,
Hi.
long story short, I'm just gonna break down the story a little bit and then I'll let you expand. But he was forced to basically expose his life and come out of the closet before he had the intentions of doing it on his own. And it kind of disrupted his friendships and his life that was going on, especially in a military environment where it's dominantly men and a lot of people are still uncomfortable with homosexuality and whatever that means for them. So I guess just kind of starting out, we'll just touch base on, I guess, when you figured or when you knew that you might be gay. We'll start there and then we can go into the rest of the details about how that impacted you and like why you chose not to be so open about it at first.
Okay. So, hi. How are you? Anyways, so I'm like bisexual, right? And I kind of like knew, which is weird. I knew because I saw like some anime porn, and I was like just scrolling because I was looking for like this cartoon. And then I saw this cartoon, this guy, like the two male cartoons, like basically getting on. And I was like, this looks kind of cool. I was really intrigued by it, right? Or turned on, whatever. And I was like maybe like 10, but I didn't really know what was turned on though, you know? So that's kind of how I knew. But the main reason why I didn't say much because of it is because my background is like very church orientated. And so they would preach like, if you're gay, you're wrong, you're God doesn't like you, da da da, like very like strict to the Bible, which it's okay-ish, I guess. I guess it gives you a good foundation, I suppose. But I really didn't accept it because I mean, my family is very like to the Bible as well. So like, there's no gay people in our family. There's no gay person in our family. There's no bisexual person in the family. If you're going to be this person, you're going to be outcast. You know what I mean? There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Especially like my side of the family, being Mexican, we're very like, we're like about the image. We're not about, you can be doing like, it's crazy because Mexicans are all about the image, how you look, like how other people perceive you. It's literally all these little things. I feel like sometimes we're like Japanese people, but the only difference is like we don't care about like academics, and you can be constantly going in and out of jail, and we could be like, oh, he went to college, and then you really did like 4 years of like a prison, which is super weird. But
yeah, exactly. No,
yeah.
Turn the other way. They look the other way and they pretend that everything's okay. I totally get that. Okay, so it started off with like accidentally seeing anime, but in your defense, being as young as you were, the anime guys in there are kind of girly looking because I've seen it too. Like, especially if you're on like the anime porn, like I have seen it. It's out there for those of you that are gonna deny that you've seen it. You're all lying. You're all lying. So, it's out there, and the anime, like the guys in there, they're all very girly. Unless I have seen some too that like they were like really like burly, like barbaric guys, but for the most part they're really girly. They're fucking beautiful almost. Like it's really sickening. So yeah,
I think
that too, like kind of like something that like started that interest.
And honestly, I think like it's more my upbringing for me to like girls. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because at this point, because if it was just like me by myself and like you just add like you take out the Christian factor and you take everything else and you just let the person grow by itself, which is kind of ironic because I talked to someone about this like it's called like the gender bread man, which talks about how some people like some things in society are basically like breathed into you, like it's taught to you. You know what I mean? You don't absorb it. You're nurtured to it. You know what I mean? And so that's how I kind of like view it. It's just kind of weird. I mean, not weird. It's more or less like interesting for me. And I've been in a relationship with females, which is cool, and I liked it. But I don't know. Super weird. I thought I'd let FYI, super weird.
And I mean, I get it. Like, there's another side to it. Like, there's like an intriguing aspect to it that you're willing to explore that. And if you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. But you're just being genuine and just trying to find like what works for you. And I get what you're saying about like the whole society thing too, because there's even things that I've done or I've exposed myself to, and it's like there's been times that I'm like, oh, like I kind of feel crappy about that, or I kind of feel guilty. But then on the other hand of it, it's kind of like, well, why do I feel this way? Like, do I feel this way because I really believe that it's wrong, or is it because people are telling me it's wrong? Like, what is the true reason? And so that's actually why I even established Taboo Talks in the first place, was to be able to talk about these things, because there's been things that I've gone through, even questioning my own sexuality at times. Like, I had girlfriends in the past because it's a part of exploring yourself. And there's been times where I'm like, wow, like, is this wrong because I know this is wrong, like in my soul, or is it wrong because I'm being told that it's wrong? So it's like a very confusing conflict, because you're constantly going back and forth between like, is this wrong because I'm not supposed to do this, or because I'm being told to, told not to. So, I mean, it's kind of confusing, especially when you're like growing up, and then to add on to that, like when you don't have that support. And I think that's like the whole purpose of like the LGBT movements that they have, is the fact that like they just need the support. I will say though, like on a side note, I get kind of like frustrated sometimes when I feel like they like, like the community itself sometimes will take it to the extreme because they've been suppressed for so long. Like, we don't go around and have like heterosexual parades and stuff, but like, you know what I mean? So like,
I feel like they're extras.
Yeah, like
I'm not gonna lie to you, because some people like some people live and die by the fucking rainbow. Like, that's why like I kind of like tell people when like, I didn't know you're a gay or whatever, because I was like, because one, we're not in a relationship, I'm not really interested in you, so there's no point for me to know that. You know what I mean? Because we're friends, right? Mm-hmm. However, like, it's not who I am. It's just what I like. You know what I mean? It doesn't define my sexuality. Doesn't define who I am. What happened?
I know there's a little bit of a lag, but I was saying that like it's a pillar. It's like a one little block of who you are, but it's not like all that you do and all that you live. And I do feel like I agree with that. Like, some people eat, breathe, and live it. And it's like, even though it's such an intimate part of your life, and that's why people get so offended when others don't agree with it, because it's like something that's so attached to like your soul, because it's such an intimate like aspect of you, but it doesn't define you. Like, realistically, unless somebody's like like super flamboyant, or like there's a woman that straight up just looks like a dude because that's how she wants to look, you really don't know. Like, how do you know like who you're sleeping with? Why does it matter? You know what I'm saying? So it's just kind of crazy to me.
Exactly.
Like, I'm not going to say that I would never go to a pride parade, because I probably will. They look really fun. Like, and I'm all about having fun and having an experience. But I will say that I do see kind of the double standard on that, where like, if somebody were to go around and have like a heterosexual parade, it probably would get stomped all over and degraded, because then it would just come across as hate versus like a celebration. So it's just kind of like,
which is
go ahead.
Sorry. It's because it's kind of like, I see what you're saying too, because like, so I went out to go meet this guy one time, right? Mm-hmm. And I was just being myself, like making jokes, and he was like, "Oh, that's so alpha male. Oh, you're so straight, aren't you?" And I like, at first I didn't really I thought he wasn't like that. He was just like a normal person. But then he was really like being legit about like these statements, because I would just make like stupid jokes like, oh, what happened if I like, I don't know, did something, you know what I mean? And he would be like, oh, that's so alpha male. Oh, you're so straight, aren't you? And I'm like, really? Like, I don't understand. Like, to this day, I remember that. Like, is this really like what people think sometimes? Like, is this what the LBG community sometimes like reflects? Sometimes like, oh, you're so straight, aren't you? Which is like super weird. Like, I
Yeah,
don't know.
kind of like.
Because I told him I was
Go ahead. What'd you
It's
say?
because I told him I was bisexual, and he was like, I told him because I was bisexual, and he kind of like frowned upon that, because it's super weird, because people don't really, from the bisexual community, like, they don't think we exist. You know what I mean? They don't think that you can like a girl and like a guy at the same time. You know what I mean?
Which is
It's just, so
crazy.
he kind of like mocked me.
Yeah, it's crazy because like if you're like somebody that just enjoys like the human experience and just human beings in general, whichever way that comes, like why does it matter? You know what I mean? It's like people from both sides, the heterosexual and the homosexual. And I even hate like classifying it in those two, but if you want to look at it like technically from both sides, it's like why is there just this divide? I can understand trying to come out of traditional ways of thinking with the Bible and stuff, but now that we're starting to move past that and marriages are made legal, they can adopt, like it kind of starts to get to a point where it's like, why are we still having this conversation? Like, if people are on board, they're on board. If they're not, they're not. And it's the same thing kind of with racism. Like, there's always going to be ignorant people out there. Let them stay ignorant and just keep going on with your life. Like, why do we have to have this like loud and boisterous like statement to try to convince people to believe or feel the same way you do when they may not? I mean, it's just reality. Like, not everybody's gonna agree with us. But so 10 years old. So you've
Exactly. I
been going through
really,
that since you were 10 then. So I'm not.
yeah, like about 10, but then like, what happened?
No, go ahead. We're lagging again, but go ahead.
What was the question?
Oh, I was just gonna make a statement. I was just saying, like about my own experience. Like, I think the first time that I realized that I thought girls were attractive, and I remember it like so clearly too. I was on my soccer team. I was in the 6th grade, so I was maybe like 12 years old, and I had the biggest crush on our goalie. And so it's like things like that. Like even at such a young age, like when we're impressionable and we don't really have like a perspective of the world, those are like your true honest feelings. Those are the feelings that like we honestly feel and we're honestly exposed to. And it's as we get older that we start having these realizations that we try to like rationalize and fight it or not fight it. And it turns out that like I'm not gay, but I can like appreciate women. And I think that's why I fight so hard for women and men, but women too, because I can appreciate both sides, for like just being a human and just like appreciating both genders.
Hmm. I totally agree. Totally agree. Because, like, at 10 years old, like, when I was, like, scrolling through this, like, I didn't really know, like, right and wrong, you know what I mean? Not until I got older where, like, I kind of, like, knew, like, which would be, like, 2 or 3 years later, like, my cousin was telling me, like, oh, that girl's so hot, da-da-da, this is what you should do, and da-da-da, whatever. You know what I mean? They kind of, like, raised me to think like this, which eventually made an impression, you know what I mean? It made me who I am today, so it's kind of weird. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Suck. Like,
So cool.
don't you wish that you could just grow up in like a society that didn't have like their prejudices and didn't have their like permanent ways of thinking? Because it would be so interesting to see like who we would be right now or like where we would go in life if we didn't worry or have these impressions put on us. Like, if we could literally just grow up and figure ourselves out with any kind of like help from the impressions and judgments of other people, like what would you actually be? You know what I mean? It's such a crazy
Yeah.
and it's like such a huge thing to think about, to like even wrap your mind around, because it's something that's like nearly impossible for us to even grasp. But I do think about that sometimes, like where would I be or what would I do? There's a lot of things, even You know, with my husband and I mean, and you know us, but we've even, you know, tapped into the world of like having open relationships and like discovering that realm just because it's like we really both were able to sit down and talk about, okay, like we're humans, like what is it that we're trying to get from this human experience and like let's do this together. And so that's why like when you kind of told me your story about like what you went through, like it made me like so freaking sad because I was like how dare people try to put their own like judgments on a situation that isn't even doesn't have anything to do with them. You know what I mean? It like really kind of pissed me off because I don't know, I didn't even know that that was going on, and so that's why I kind of feel like I failed you as a friend, but at the same time it's like I guess we all have our journey, and that was like your piece of the pie to like make you who you were today. That was like the next thing that I was going to go into was the situation that you experienced of how you actually came out and became open about yourself. Not even that it was like a choice that you consciously made, but you were kind of thrown into it and like how that impacted you, you know, in a positive way. Obviously, there's a lot of negatives to that too, but in a positive way, like what you were able to gain from that. So if you want to share your story, you can briefly let everybody know your story. And then I really want to like share with everybody the positives that came out of that and like what it did for you.
Yeah, totally. So, um, basically what happened was is that there was like, um, so my old job was infantry, and so you're surrounded against with like alpha males, who are very like straightforward. And I knew like I grew up in a rough neighborhood where not really too rough, but like I had rough cousins and rough family members. So like I know how to be just as aggressive to someone else who's aggressive as well, but not come off as weak. You know what I mean? And so one thing I told myself was when I was joining the army, and I was like, okay, I'm joining infantry. I'm not gonna tell anybody that I'm gay or bisexual, even though like in the long run, like they don't know my family, they don't know anybody here, they don't know anything of my hometown. So it would be the easiest way for me to come out, you know what I mean, if I wanted to come out, you know what I mean, it'd be like the first step of anything. But I was like, I know how people are, and I don't want people to judge me of who I am. You know what I mean? I want them just to have like this prejudgment of who I am already because I am like this person because of my sexual orientation, who I take to bed. You know what I mean? And I didn't want them to think that like, especially in males, is like, it's if you see, it's okay for a girl to be bisexual. It's okay for a girl to be, but for a guy, like if another guy comes up to another guy and he's like, oh, I'm bisexual, they automatically assume that like that guy is like undressing them with their eyes, you know what I mean? And so that little like barrier is created between two males, you know what I mean? Like, oh, I don't want him talking because he's like bisexual or whatever, because then it kind of like messes up with his image, you know what I mean, among the other guys, and it's just like super stupid. And so I didn't want to go through all that, you know what I mean? I wanted to have a great time in my military career and enjoy who I was and enjoy my my personality, not my sexual orientation, my personality with other people who would get along with it, which I met some cool people nevertheless. However, so basically, I'm like probably like I'm not like tooting my horn here, but I definitely am. Is that like I was definitely like one of like the coolest people on my platoon. Like we had the clique, everybody wanted to hang out with us. Everybody wanted to be with us. Like, we're the people that you wanted to drink with. We're the people who are always going out. We're always the people who are just enjoying life to the fullest, and everybody else kind of like wanted to tag along to us. And so there was this guy named so-and-so. Me and him, we never got along. And so me and him got into like an argument, and he was like, he asked to use my phone. And I was like, yeah, sure. Like, here's my phone or whatever. And so then he went through my history and he saw the gay porn. And so I knew that moment because he had like a certain like face reaction. And I know like how certain people like react, like, oh shit, like got some good tea, sis. I got some good tea. Like that's how his face was, like, I got tea to spill. And I was like, this. So then he basically went around, told everybody I know. And then literally the following day, I mean, not the following day, like literally within the next 2 hours, like I was outcast. Like you could just tell how people were kind of talking to me because my platoon's all full of males. So like you already know, like, you know, you already know how they act. Like, you know, they go from like making jokes with you to kind of like being real quiet around you to kind of
Mhm.
looking at you from a distance, you know, like it was super like weird. And so, I mean, it ended up like everybody knew, like everybody in my whole company ended up knowing. I remember there was like a scene where, uh, I was getting my food because you know you had trays to go pick up your food from a defect, and so I remember this guy. He looked at me and like he like looked at me with disgust. I know like how like from one person, and the reason I know is because he's like started nodding his head and like kind of like giving me this like nasty look, and I was just like my biggest fear of like being disowned because of my sexuality it's finally happened. And I was like, literally everything that could have gone wrong just went wrong. You know what I mean? Because then I had no more friends. I'm in Korea. I'm by myself. I don't have no one else to talk to. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like, so, and then you can't like go out and tell someone, like, hey, I'm having this problem because, like, you know, because then you have to tell someone what's going on with your problems. You know what I mean? There's a trap that you just set yourself up. You know, you can't tell no one because it's your deepest secret. But if you tell someone, like, they kind of know your deepest secret, and you have to accept the reality of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
so for like the next, yeah, so the next 3 days, like I was basically drinking myself, taking sleeping pills to like just to forget. Literally, I would drink so much alcohol, take like sleeping pills. I know it's terrible on your liver and whatever, but I did it because I didn't want to. I didn't want to remember. I really did not want to remember. And I'm like, I remember no one wanted to help me. Not even my own leadership wanted to help me. And so I just remember like out of frustration, like I remember like asking for help and people weren't going to help me. And so I was locked out of my room. So then I got in trouble, broke a window, whatever. You know what I mean? And so then they were like, you know, we're going to kick you out of the army basically because, you know, all they're seeing is the breaking of the window, but they don't see the cause of the breaking the window. And so and everybody in the platoon knew what was the cause, but no one was going to say anything. And so everybody was kind of just like kind of outcasting me because they're like, oh, he's gay and he's getting kicked out of the army. Like, bye. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, like
literally the
they
devil.
basically like just kind of ended it right there instead of like it could have gone a totally different way, and they basically just kind of gave up on the situation and kind of turned it into whatever they thought it should be.
Exactly. And so, like, I was kind of like, just like disowned with like everything. And so, yeah. And I mean, I came to a realization because then I have to like kind of fight within my own self as well because you know I come from like a background where like you don't snitch on someone, you don't tell someone like your problems. If you have a problem with someone, you go up and square up with them. You know what I mean? But I was gonna get kicked out because of this problem. You know what I mean? So I had like it's either I snitch on this person and I save my own ass, or I tell what's going on and like or either I stitch on this person and tell what's going on with my life, or I go down with a chapter and not knowing what, like, basically getting screwed over. You know what I mean? Over something that like someone did to me. You know? And so to me, I was so frustrated. And then if I once I snitched, which I'm not saying snitching is bad if it's like really directing to you, but the moment I tell someone, I'm exposing myself all to everybody to know. Like everybody had to know because I remember they were like, okay, if you're gonna have to make this complaint, what's gonna happen? This is what's gonna happen, and then because I asked them like, if I make an EO complaint, how will this happen? Which is an equal opportunity complaint, and so they're like, everybody in the company is gonna know, all the leadership's gonna know, everybody. We're gonna make this. There's gonna be officers who are gonna investigate into this. Like everybody's gonna know your shit by the time we're done. People who don't know are gonna know. This is basically how it's gonna go down. And so I mean, I was like, screw it. Like, at this point, I was like, screw it. I'm going to tell everybody because, I'm not going to let someone kind of like throw me under the bus and I'm going to take the short end of the stick because they don't like my sexual orientation. Like, I'm done with it. And so I kind of had to accept myself for it, which my good friend Eddie, I don't know, remember Eddie, but Eddie, I remember he told me, he was like, look, man, I'd rather know you for who you are as a whole than only know a piece of you. Because at the end of the day, you're still my friend. And I remember those words vividly, and I remember I was like, I don't know if I could do this. He's like, that guy, he's an asshole. He screwed you over, and he's trying to like act like he's the hero, but he's not. Like, tell and like get your side of the story out there so you can save yourself, so you can be in the army still, and you can end up with an honorable discharge instead of like getting kicked out, and having this regret on your end. So to me, that's like the biggest advice I ever got is to, accept who yourself are, love who you are, and go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Honestly,
That's the T.
I love that you had somebody that was able to tell you that, because one, like, you being able to stand up for yourself is protecting yourself. It's not something that you asked for. It's not something that you were trying to get into, but you were kind of forced into this position. And then not only that, like, once you were forced into this position, forget the friends, like, fuck the friends. They obviously weren't friends. But now it's messing with your career, which is messing with your paycheck, which is messing with your life. You know what I mean? So at some point you do have to like be able to stand up and do whatever it takes to rectify that situation, regardless of who it involves. And I found myself in a similar position of that as well, where it becomes difficult because you're like, well, do I want to be known for like a snitch, or do I want to be known for the guy that like broke a window? You know what I mean? So it's kind of like you're dealing with the lesser of two evils, and trying to pick like what's best, because you don't really know what that outcome is going to be. But as far as like just that whole situation in general, like, one, obviously it's screwed up that people judged you and kind of looked at you differently for that. The only thing I can think of, is that like some people feel, I guess, kind of like lied to or like confused because they don't expect it, and then it comes out, and then their mind is just kind of blown and they don't handle it the right way. And I'm hoping for the best case scenario that a lot of the people that treated you like shit, just because of what you might be attracted, like who you're attracted to or what you're doing in your personal time. I seriously and like genuinely hope that it wasn't all of them, and that maybe they just got caught up in this like mean girls mentality. You know what I mean? Like they would have rather gone with the flow instead of causing kind of riffraff and backing you up. But regardless, like, I think it says a lot about you in being able to like bounce back. And that's what I was telling you. Like, I literally had no idea. I know that I switched units at that time, so I was already like a few hours away. But even then, like, I had no idea, because I had always seen you as like this happy, charismatic person that, like, you always just wanted to have a good time, and it didn't really matter like what was going on or who was there. Like, you were just trying to connect with everybody. And I don't know, that's why I said it kind of makes me feel like crap that I didn't even tune into that or know anything that was going on, because I still had friends over there too. But I don't know, I guess, like, what was like your positive takeaway? So I know you said like when Eddie was telling you like just be yourself, like, how do you feel like that affects you now? Like, how has that situation kind of molded like how you live your life today?
Oh. Oh, so one, like, I'm more open about my life. I don't really like. I'm at the point where I got to my next unit, which I switched units or whatever. And so then when I got to my next unit, I was like, you know what? If this shit comes up again, okay, I'm like, if they ask me or some shit happens like this, I'm just gonna be like, yeah, I'm bisexual. I suck dick. Like, what's good? You're gonna be my friend or what? Like, like, that's how like my explanation. That's how like my situation came up to. You know what I mean? And that's how I kind of like view life now. Like if you want to know, yeah, I'll tell you. But if you don't want to know, cool. Like, don't ask the question you don't want to know. You know what I mean? And that's kind of how I am. Like, no, I just accept who I am, and I also understand that you have to really respect yourself and not let other people shit on you. You know what I mean? Like you said, like, you know what I mean? Don't always take the L for someone else. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're growing up in like in a rough neighborhood, like, you don't say anything because you don't want to be a snitch. And There's a point in your time where you're gonna have to say something. Like, stand up and fight for yourself. Like, screw that whole like street rap shit. You know what I mean? Like, we ain't no blood in and blood out kind of bullshit. Living on like two corner of Tupac, you know, like whatever. And that's just kind of like how I see it now. It's just like, do what you do. If someone screws you over, like obviously try to like figure out the problem. But if they're really trying to like mess up with your career and they mess with you mentally, like stand up for yourself, say something, and go from there. You know what I mean? Also accept who you are. You know, that's just kind of how I see it. That's how I like the positive is like, no, I'm happy. I accept who I am. I'm in a relationship that I want to be in because I accept who I am. You know what I mean? It's just there's no more like shadows. You know what I mean? Because once the curtain was revealed, I was like, oh shit, this is it. Like, there's no more hiding to hide. You know what I mean? I have to say what's on my mind because people can't like, I can't hide no more because shit, like everybody knows my shit now. Like, even if I wanted to hide, like, oh, JK guys, like that gay porn wasn't me, you know, like that girl, like, like no, like
Yeah, somebody borrowed your
too
phone.
late. It's like,
You know, that's what happened. Somebody borrowed your phone. That's crazy. So do you feel like that that's something that you needed to finally like be truly who you are 100%, or would you have liked to have done it a different way?
I honestly, ideally, I like to like do some like really like iconic like have the family come over for Thanksgiving and then just be like, I'm fucking gay, like I snuck gay kid. It's like, but it's too late now, you know. It's like it's gone. And then like have like, and then have like my boyfriend come in and be like, we've been lovers for like 10 years and I can't hold it any longer. Or and then kind of like do that same thing.
It's like, yeah, I used to do anime porn, and that's how we met.
It's kind of like honestly, I think I needed that push. I think, well, I don't know, I really can't say, but you know, I'm thankful for the event because now I know who all my friends are, like, which is kind of funny because like one of my friends came up to me and he was like, you know, I'm kind of going through the same thing, and I was like, why did you treat me like this? And he was just like dot 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 dot, which is gonna be A and B conversation. I can't go any further in, but you know what I mean, like, which is crazy too. Like, it's just because everybody's kind of like, everybody got a little rainbow in them, and they just don't know.
Yes, and you never know. And that's the funny thing about the human experience. Like, the attraction that I have for like women and females is not the same attraction that I have like for my husband, but it is an attraction and something that I can appreciate in both sexes. And I think as soon as people like realize that you can appreciate and love like humans for what they are and who they are, it doesn't have to be like a gender thing necessarily. And I'm not even going into like non-binaries and unspecified. I'm just talking like as a human, like we all are on the same page that we're human beings. You know, if you can just accept and like appreciate the relationships that you develop and like whichever way they turn or whichever way they go, you know, to everybody's comfort level, like why does it have to be this stigma? And honestly, I've noticed that the people that push so hard against it are the people that are like violently against it. And I was even talking with this to Jill earlier today. We were talking about like homosexuality and people that fight against it so hard, and people that like get angered by it or hate, you know, gay people or whatever the thing is usually because they're dealing with it themselves and they just don't know how to like accept it. They don't know how to accept the thoughts or the feelings or whatever it is that they're feeling, and so they come out as angry and hateful and prejudiced. And sometimes it is a religious thing, but even then, when you have religious people that believe in God and read the Bible, when they're not dealing with these kind of feelings, they don't generally have any kind of hate, you know what I'm saying, towards the people that are living whatever lifestyle they choose to live. So I noticed that it's people that like have these feelings themselves and they just don't know how to deal with it or cope with it, and that so they come out as anger and hateful and they want to like be as far away as possible. And it's just like, really, they just have to be honest with themselves. And if it's something they're okay with, you know, and they want to explore, then explore. If they don't like it, okay, then, you know, take that next step. But I don't know. That was just like my 2 cents. I've noticed that when people are so hateful and judgmental, it's usually because it's something in themselves that they're like dealing with. You know what I mean? It's not usually a personal thing. And it's really freaking unfortunate that like we find ourselves in these situations where we don't have the support that we need. But if we can just step back and it's like you said, like be appreciative of the event or the situation, we can really like understand that it's not something personal. It's probably just something that these people are dealing with themselves. You know what I mean? To an extent.
Which is it's just crazy because like literally the same shit almost happened. Well, it did happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I, like 3 7, like at my last unit, which I got transferred out, and like one of the dudes, he like saw my phone and he saw like so basically the same shit, right? And I was like, shit, here we are, we're going again, round 2. You know what I mean? Like shit, you know, I'm about to be EO's best friend or whatever, you know, or like, but like he ended up like I didn't hear. I was waiting for like a week's like reaction. You know, like okay, like I'm looking for the signs. Like, is anybody like talking to me weird? Like, is there, you know what I mean? But then he started like getting like really like talkative to me, and then he started like snapping pictures. I mean, snapping videos of him like peeing. And because he was like, and it was really weird because I was like, you know, like, I see you as my friend. I don't see you any further of that. You know what I mean?
He wants to get in your DMs.
I was like, exactly. Like, I don't get turned on because, I'm seeing you pee on, like, the toilet. Like, to me, that was, like, the oddest thing. That
I'm not R. Kelly. Let's just cut to the chase. You know what I'm saying? Like, hopefully that doesn't go over everybody's head. Did that just go over your head?
Say that again? I couldn't hear because, I was tripping on my own case.
R. Kelly? Because you're talking about
R. Kelly?
being a fetish. Oh. Yeah, see? Is it too soon? I'm bringing up the past now. See? I'm just looking at the past.
It's fine.
Okay, but some real talk though. So we'll go into your relationship a little bit. We're not going to go into detail because that's not nobody's business, and I don't even put my own life out there like that. But so you mentioned earlier that you are dating somebody that's a little bit older than you. There is a Taboo podcast that I listen to called To Talk Taboo, and they're freaking hilarious. It's 2 women that do this, and they're fucking funny. But they talk about like age disparity, which is like a huge gap in age, basically. So I don't know how much older your boyfriend is than you, but how do you think that like this situation has kind of like played into that? Like, does it have any kind of like impact on your relationship, or is it just kind of 2 separate beasts in itself? Like, how did you guys even, is it an age thing, or is it just like you're attracted to like his personality, like you're with him because of who he is?
Okay, so how we met on Grindr, which is like an app. I don't know if you know it, but I'll just like spill a tea for everybody. It's like you usually use it for hookups, like you're trying to find like a quick dick, you know what I mean? And so that's what I was doing.
I love you.
And so and so that's what basically happened, and it was supposed to be like a one-time deal, because I remember I saw him on like a picture and I was like, damn, he's fine as hell. Like, you got muscles and everything. And so then we we did the nasty or whatever, and then he invited me over. I mean, he kept on doing it like 3 more times, then he invited me over, which is weird because like guys are completely different from girls. Girls are like, you gotta take me out for dinner, you gotta like buy me all this shit before you get into the puss. And then like guys on the other hand, like it's like, you're gonna suck my dick or what? And then we'll go from the name, like, okay, you have sex, then you get the name, then you get the phone number, and it's like it's opposite of like the female's like first view, which is super crazy.
That is really interesting to know.
But then yeah, it's like because like you to meet a guy to get in a relationship, you usually like hook up on first, like you skip like first base and you just go all the way to like fucking to space and have sex on the first like 15 minutes, right? And like then from there, like you leave, and the next time it's like, hey, you want to have sex again? And then you might like get his name or number or whatever, and then you go from there, like, hey, you want to go on a date or whatever? Because actually we've been fucking for like 4 times already, and so but so then that's basically what happened. Was like basically like what just happened. He was like, I'm new to the area, like, do you want to have dinner or whatever? And I was like, yeah, sure, which is kind of weird because I didn't have, at this point, I never like really accepted myself. I mean, I did, but now it's like after the whole career thing, now I'm back in like in the States and kind of just like going through the motions of who I am and accepting who I am as more sociable, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, he like, it kind of just went from there, and then, we kind of like connected, and then here we are, like in a relationship, which is kind of weird because I didn't know he was 10 years older than me, you know what I mean? I was like, we just asked him a question. I was like,
Yeah, like
how
it
old are
just
you?
kind of, it
Like,
was very
oh,
natural. Like it
33.
wasn't anything that was forced. Like I agree with you that like with the whole dating scheme, obviously like me and Melch, we got married pretty quickly and it worked out for us, which isn't the case for everybody else. But there is kind of an expectation for like like a girl on guy relationship, I think. And this is just because this is what I've known that, after you've been dating for some period of time, it's like, okay, when you're going to get married or, you're going to wait this long to have sex or whatever. Um, and it's kind of funny. We have a similar situation because we actually met on Tinder on accident. We weren't looking for a relationship, but we met on Tinder, had a good time. Let me just put it that way. And 3 years later, we're married and we have a kid. So it worked out. But it's kind of cool to see, like what you were just saying, that dynamic is different because that's something I'll be really honest, I didn't even think about. But it's a huge difference because if you think about like how women are wired and how men are wired, like, and it goes back into society almost of like the gender roles and like how we're expected to be and like the men are expected to court us and take us out. And I think that's crazy. Like literally it sounds kind of like funny and taboo in a way, but Melch literally like made me propose to him. So I really
Yeah,
wanted
because
to
it
propose.
was different.
Yeah, but he literally, wanted me to propose to him because he had been married before and he just, out of like kind of a fun thing. And I actually liked it. Like I liked being able to be romantic and like plan it and everything. And it was just personal between us and who cares because we're still married at the end of the day. But I really don't like the gender roles and the fact that like we're expected to do things a very specific way. So that's why I think it's kind of cool that like you guys can just go into whatever you're doing and have that moment of like just fun or like spontaneity, whatever, spontaneousness.
It was different
Yeah, like just
because
a whole
it
different
was
dynamic.
it was different because like I go from like having like going on dates and like just getting out of a relationship with a female and taking her out to places, and then I like switch the roles, and like now I'm the girl basically, and getting like he's buying me dinners.
And
I was like shit,
now you see why we do it. That's
yeah, for real. I was like, I got myself a daddy. Shit.
that's crazy. Do you think that you're more like attracted to males than women, or is it kind of equal, or does it really not matter? It just depends on the person.
It's kind of like on the person because like I can really appreciate like a real beautiful woman, and be like, damn, like she's really pretty, and I think I'm more mentally attracted to females because females are more like they want to talk and they want to have a conversation, they want to like go through all these motions, and I kind of like want to be all up on the tea, you know what I mean, like be like, spill the tea, sis,
Yeah.
and, but like guys on the other hand, it's like he's very like, and what I've noticed with even all guys is like leave me alone kind of thing. Like I don't want to spill tea. I don't want to be in my emotions. I don't want to tie. I just want to be like here and now and just kind of like go through the motions, call it a day, and then have sex here and there and then call it a day. You know what I mean? Which
Hmm.
is they're not very like they're also very appendant. You know what I mean? And so females are very appendant. Like they want to know what you're thinking, while guys are like, I'll be on my own kind of thing. And
Yeah.
so I like the mental attraction of a female, but physically, girl, like shit, like his body's fine as hell. It should be turning me on when you walk around like shirtless. I'd be like, damn, like
Okay,
shit.
so that's my next
You know what I
question
mean?
because I'm really curious. So, is it different, like for you, I guess, because everybody's different, but for you, like physical attraction, what is it about a guy that is physically attractive? Like I know for me, it's like it's definitely the smile. Like I like when guys have a little bit of a booty. You know what I'm saying? Like, even if it's a little bigger than mine, I'm okay with that. But what is it for you that like is really attractive on a guy?
A big dick. I'm just joking.
I was literally about to say don't say that because I know you're not just like around guys with their dicks out all day long, so I don't want to even hear that lie. Like,
What really attracts me is like a good face. You know what I mean? Because
mhm.
like on Grinder, like it's crazy because like they just throw like dick pics out, and like it's like okay, cool, like
Like, okay, cool. I have one too. So no.
yeah, you know, like we get my match, like shit, I can show you my dick pic too, like you know, it'd be nasty too, because I'm just like oh, that's just weird, or like it'd just be like a little piece of like their ear because they're super secretive. They don't want no one to know, you know. And so like they have like a picture of like maybe their foot or some crazy shit, you know. But really attracts me is
Like,
like
damn,
the
that's a sexy ass
yeah
foot. Hey, you never know.
yeah.
You never know. That could be the
But
one.
really,
You know, you just be letting them go because you want to see more than a foot.
you know, I'm okay with that. I don't want to see no foot, you know, like. I do not want my foot sucked, but
Most
like you
definitely.
know, it's a little secret fantasy of mine until now. But uh,
Oh my
it's
god.
more or less like the chest, like a muscular person, you know, like
Yeah.
I think of like it's more like the sexual act, like you know, like getting like being like having sex with someone who's like very muscular and stronger than me, and like having a good smile, like it really just turns me on, like you know, like having sex with like a Viking or some shit like that, like just like intrigues me sexually, like damn, like that's just so crazy. So I'm
Really?
like a female, like
Would you have sex with yourself? Would you date yourself? That's what I want to know.
no.
No, don't do that to yourself. Stop.
I'm too fat.
Oh
Not
my
really.
gosh, that's what you're talking about. Like you like being the girl and just having this muscular man. I get it though. It's okay. I'm the same way. And you know, I'm not super muscular, so I guess I can't really be biased, but I do like muscular guys and like the builds and everything. So it does
It's
matter.
because
Everybody has
it's
their type. Some people like the extra pounds. A couple people like them a little bit on the lean side. You like them in between. That's okay.
I'm like a muscular as hell, you know what I mean, with a big dick, you know, because you know, if you're gonna marry someone, it's gonna be for a long time. You know, you gotta enjoy everything.
Like you pretty much know the condition you get them is going to be the condition, like the best condition you're going to have before everybody lets themselves go.
And so like it's crazy too, because like when I like we started like dating, I mean, when we started dating, right, which is crazy now because I live in this house and it's kind of like all organic, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
And you like it's weird because like he like tells me sometimes I've known you for a long time, and then like it trips me out because like I know him, his actions by heart. So it's kind of like really weird for me, like you know, like people talk about like you know knowing this other person, but you know, like to me, I'm like, hey, shut the fuck up. You know, you just trying to like sell all bougie and shit. But you know, like it's
Hmm.
really weird when I'm in the situation, and I'm not even trying to like be all like googly about this whole situation. You know, and I
No,
enjoy it, and it
but like
just wouldn't happen. It,
humans are very spiritual creatures though, and I think that's what people don't get and they kind of like block themselves off from. We're very spiritual creatures, and so there's like a whole different level that you can take your mind, you know what I'm saying, and like your understanding of the world and perception. And it's like even like we were even talking about Melch and I were talking about like an ayahuasca trip. So it's like a tea. Have you heard of that? Like where you have like drink like the tea bark and it's basically a psychedelic like DMT, but they do it for the purpose of meditation. And it completely like elevates their mind and gives them a different view of the world to where they don't come back as same person because our brain literally is just a bunch of like Snapchat filters on the world. Like we don't really see the truth of what's going on a spiritual level. And so, like, when you can connect with somebody like that, it's like the greatest feeling. And it makes you want to connect with everybody in that way because you see the potential of the kind of relationships you can be having. You know what I mean? It's really insane. So, do you think that, like, you guys have that connection because he's a little bit older and, like, more mature? Or, like, do you just think it's, like, something to do with your personalities?
so I'm really open to like dating anybody, to be honest. Like anybody but besides like 40 years old, because
Why
unless
not?
they're 40, because if they're like I don't know, because they're too old for me. Shit, I don't want to be older, like as old as my dad. Basically, it should be
You might
nasty as
like it.
hell.
You just don't know. You might like it. You're gonna be there one day too.
Well,
Get it?
that'd be weird because like I show up to like the Thanksgiving and be like, "That was my boyfriend," and it's like, "How old are you?" "Oh, it's like the same age as my dad." Like, oh
But that's the
shit!
thing,
Like,
though. Is it a
talk about.
human being? It's a human being, right?
You know what? You're right. Anyways, uh, it was kind of it. He was more on the defense side to date because I was younger, and I was more or less open to date him, and he was like more or less like, I have my career, I have this, I have that. I mean, I don't know if I want to be in a relationship with you. And I dated someone younger, and it ended up well because he ended up cheating. Like the guy who he was with was younger than him, and he ended up cheating on him. So he was kind of like cautious about it,
Mm-hmm.
and so um, it was kind of aggravating because at one point he didn't want anything else. He just wanted to just be friends at one point. And I just couldn't take it. I was like, like it's either me or the whole thing. You know what I mean? There's no in between. Like how we started the relationship, even though we started off like kind of just like in a fuzz, and then you wanted like you gave me the key to your house, you gave me the key to you talked me up to the other, you started taking me out to dinner, you started doing things to me, you know what I mean? And then you started wanting to talk to me more often. There's a foundation that we created something when we met each other, and there's no way I can just pull that out and just act like nothing happened, you know? And
Yeah.
so I told him, I was like, it's either me or the whole thing. And then he kind of like, okay, basically like, okay, like for sure, like, let's date, and then basically how it is. But I think we really connected on like the personality, because sometimes it was weird because, we were able just to like, um, so I was in a relationship with the girl. I was able to really connect with her, but we ended up like breaking it off because she started doing like really bad drugs, like meth and shit. It's where like I used to live, and like meth was like a super like powerful like drug that was popping out like everywhere. Everybody was doing it. It was like a thing to do, and like I was like the only one who was not like doing it. Like they were like tripping out. Like, why don't you try some meth? It's freaking amazing. I was like, I don't know, because it's amazing, it's meth. And then and then like they kind of like, so I kind of broke it off, and like the thing I liked her was that I was able to communicate with her a lot and have a great conversation and stuff, which this time I do too with him. Like, we could just be sitting down, we could just talk about, he's super political, so he'd be talking about like how much he hates Trump and all this stuff. And then I kind of like to play devil's advocate sometimes, and I kind of just do things to like kind of aggravate in the conversation, or I'll say something to like kind of like basically get into like conversation in this hour. It's just super beautiful how we can just have like conversations and not always be about like sexual things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, the bonus is to have sex, but like the mental conversation is so much more of value to me. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. No, I think that's great. I
So
mean, and it pretty much sums it up perfectly because age really is just a number. And I get what you're saying about like, you now basically dating like a Hugh Hefner probably would be like not ideal for you, but just in general, like if you find a connection with somebody and it works, like I really don't think that it matters, until it does. So like if it doesn't matter to you or you're like even interested, I think that you should be able to explore yourself and figure yourself out and not. That's what people don't realize. Like we have this one life in this physical body, and I truly believe that when we go on, we're gonna be in some spiritual world that is just gonna blow our minds. But in this like part of where we are, my belief is that, this is the one life you get to live. Like you should totally fall in love with yourself and get to know yourself and be able to share that with the world, or the people that want to share that with you and not really hold back. So I think that's important. Like that was my biggest thing that I really wanted to highlight on this was, that struggle that you did go through because you weren't intending on being open about this and you were kind of forced to be that way and you lost some friendships and you went through a really hard time, in a way that you felt like you were by yourself. And I know a lot of people, both men and women, and all in between struggle with that same feeling where they feel like they're really by themselves. And unfortunately, some of them don't get to see the other side, you know, especially with like suicide rates and things like that, where they just never get to the other side. But there is another side to it. And, you know, happiness and just like accepting yourself and just being okay with who you are. You know, it's just getting to that other side that I think people really need to hear. And especially in this month of love, because I'm doing a month of love for February, not everybody has somebody, you know what I mean? And so they just need to know, like, that's okay. Like, it's really all about being okay with yourself. You know what I mean? Like, that's the step. Even in my marriage, like, sometimes I have to, like, just get with myself and be by myself and just realize that, like, if I needed to, like, I'm all that I need. You know what I mean? And I'm
Exactly. I agree with you. And I honestly am grateful for the situation that happened to me, even though it was crappy. I was able to rise above it and like take a positive note out of it. You know what I mean? Because I knew most likely I wouldn't be in the relationship I am right now with him. You know what I mean? Just because if that situation never happened, if oh shit, whatever. If
I'll be there. You're good.
if if that like person never like did that shit to me, you know what I mean? Like I wouldn't be okay. But like my boy Eddie, you know what I mean? He kind of just told me, he was just like, accept who you are, accept this, accept that. You know what I mean? Stop denying yourself of who you are, and just be who you are. And I kind of walked away and like you said, like you only have one life. Like, why do I want to live miserable? Like there's people who go all the way up to their 80s and then they finally come out gay and are like, I'm about to die, and they
Yes,
enjoy
and
their
by
lives
then,
for
like,
10
they
years.
have no more sperms left, and they gotta take medicine to make the shit work. And it's like, man, like, then there's people like you that don't want to date them because they're old, you know, so they just missed out on a whole life.
Well, girl, if they got the money, you know what I mean? If they got the money, then we might be talking.
That's so crazy. Honestly, though, like, I really do want to end this and just say, like, you know, in ending this, I just want to say thank you for letting me interview you and sharing this with everybody that listens, because I know we have like 800 plus people on Facebook right now, and it's definitely growing. So there's somebody out there, even if it's just one person out of that 800 plus, you know, it's going to help somebody. And not just the men, but also the women, because I know there's women out there dealing with this too. And then there's people out there dealing with their own gender identity, like whether or not they want to be male or female, or whether or not they feel like, you know, they're unspecified or an alien or whatever people want to be. Like, if they want to be a fucking dog, who cares? But there's somebody out there struggling with their identity, and being able to hear your story and how difficult it was, but that like it actually made you better is a huge plus, because we don't see that when it's going on. You know, it just looks like a huge like fail. It looks like everything's crumbling. It feels that way. And then you get to the other side of it and you realize, okay, like I'm actually way stronger than I've ever been. And this is kind of okay. So that's why like I really was excited to interview you, especially just with some of the stuff that you shared with me that I didn't even know about. Like, it's stuff that people need to hear. And I really want to highlight that, especially in the month of love, because it's all about self-love, you know, first. And I think it's really important to share with others, like, that you were able to get there, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But
And we'll spill that tea. But yeah, totally.
exactly, yeah, share with everybody. But that's okay. You're out there
All
now.
right, well,
I mean, and just so everybody
yeah.
knows, like, this is a very like personal conversation with a good friend of mine. So no, I'm not like all promoting it. He doesn't have his own podcast channel, so you know, maybe one day we'll get there. But for now, like, I just wanted you guys to hear a really positive story from a kind of a crappy situation with a lot of different things involved in it. It's a very complicated story, but it really does make sense if you just sit down and think about it like human to human. It's a very simple story of just be yourself and love yourself, and whoever is okay with that is going to be okay with it, and those are your true friends, and whoever's not, like, they're going to filter themselves out very, very quickly.
Exactly. Honestly, I'm so grateful because at the end of the day, you find out who's your real friend and who wants to be with you and who wants to talk to you. Like, look at us. Like, we're friends even after you left the army, even after you left Fort Riley. You know what I mean?
I know.
So,
In fact, like, I almost even feel closer to you now, which kind of is shitty, but like even closer now, and you were even at my even though you were drunk at my baby shower throwing jello everywhere, it's okay because we still love you. And so,
I was trying to get everybody drunk that day.
gosh, I don't even know if you remember. I was just telling my friend about it, how you came dressed as the ugly bitch, and I just thought that was the
Yeah.
like literally you're dressed as an ugly bitch. I don't know. That was pretty funny. Yeah, dude,
It's not
thanks so much for letting me
totally.
this. It means a lot, and for always supporting us. Just so everybody knows, like, this is like my number one fan, literally. Aside from our obvious, like, the parents and stuff, like, this is my number one, like, main squeeze. So thank you for always supporting us and for being a part of this. And one day when we're millionaires talking to the world, like, you're gonna be right there with us. So just know that. But I
No
hope
worries. I'm ready to spill the tea. But
yeah,
yeah, I definitely gotta get going because I gotta like do some microbiology and stuff. But
you're always like building yourself up. So go ahead, do your thing, and we'll we'll see you on the other side. Bye.
bye later.